What is happening, DeRosa Insiders? This is Matt Faircloth, and welcome to the Cash Flow Digest Show. Like I said, my name is Matt, and our company is the DeRosa Group. We're a real estate company dedicated to transforming lives through real estate. There it is. I got it trapped. We're going to hop into the show. I've got a phenomenal guest today, and I'm biased because I am married to our guest. Our guest is the Liz Faircloth, the real estate investor, the co-founder of the DeRosa Group. And my lovely wife, her and I started DeRosa in 2005. I'll probably tell some of our backstory from '05 when we got crazy and decided to start our business right after we got married. I'd like to introduce yourself to someone, you guys, to someone who's very near and dear to me and who has a lot to say about how this name got put on the name, why that word's above my head, and why that company is called what it's called. She is the wind in my sails. She is the why, the answer to why for a lot of reasons why I do what I do. And she is by far the co-creator of a lot of this company, the DeRosa Group. So, and also a creator of a phenomenal movement. I can't say it's even a company. This is beyond that. It's a movement called the Real Estate Investor. Let me bring in the love of my life and also proud to see my business partner, Liz Faircloth. How are you, Liz?
What an intro. What an intro.
You like that? We got that recorded, so you can take that. And
I will definitely take that and snip it and listen to it every time I want to strangle you.
You should carry that around in a tape recorder and just play it, and it'll just, you know what? I need to bring myself down. Right. Good. Well, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Coming off a fun week we had, right? With the kiddos.
We did, man. Yeah, we sure did. We took our kids to Universal and lived to tell the stories. All right. I was telling a friend this morning, I'm just not going to look at the credit card bill. I don't want to hear about it. I want to know about it. We should just close our eyes and push the pay button. I don't know.
I don't think I've ever used my credit card as much as we did this past week, right?
They make it easy to not use your credit card, guys. You just link it to your phone. You just tap your phone. You just tap your little watch, tap your little room card, and before you know it, it's just bling. Right.
True.
It is a magical experience, and it is something you just have to just close your eyes and just make it happen. So, but a great experience, Liz. I want to. There's a lot of origin story that I tell my side of in the DeRosa Group, and how that name got there, and how these words are sitting above my head, which is a phrase that was so near and dear to our company that became something we trademarked. So can you tell a bit of your origin story with DeRosa, the early days? Take us back to like 2003 or 5, wherever you want to start it. When you put Rich Dad Poor Dad in my hand, you started all this thing. Thanks. So give us some of your origin story here.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 3 years old, now I won't go back that far.
Right.
So I was going to school for studying social work. So I wanted to become a social worker. I actually wanted to open my own practice and helping people. And I was actually drawn to helping women. I actually put a business plan together during my social work experience, where the business plan was all around a center to help women who had a substance abuse issue, as well as a mental illness. So, my love for supporting women started then. And my love for real estate was born out of my brother-in-law handing me Rich Dad Poor Dad and just saying, hey, Liz, take a look at this book. It's helping a lot of people. And this is like early, right? When Kiyosaki was still doing a lot of going to RIA meetings and Dig, I think he spoke at Dig even at that time, right? So it's a long time ago. And the book was forever an impact in my life. And it started to make me think about passive income. It started to make me think about, creating something bigger than ourselves. I wanted to do that already because of my desire to help people. But it created like this financial vehicle to do that by building wealth, by not just working for money, but actually building a business. So, and it also talked a lot about sales and becoming really good at sales as an investor and as a business person, as an entrepreneur. And at the same time, I met you, Matt. I read that book, and we met in 2002, right? I mean, it was a long time ago.
I met Liz a few times and had to convince her to go out with me after a few tries. She finally agreed because she could get a free dinner out of it, and then went out to dinner and had talked about a lot of things that we shared, a lot of values we shared in life.
And I remember like really being intrigued by the book, and I didn't have many people I could talk to about, just different things. And I knew from when Matt and I started dating, he was different than every other guy that I had ever dated. And we had very similar, values of spirituality and creating a bigger life for ourselves. So he read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then we decided to really start educating ourselves. We didn't know anyone that invested in real estate. We really didn't know many entrepreneurs except my brother-in-law, who was in a completely different industry. So we really had to educate ourselves. And, when we were commuting to meet each other, because I was living back in New Jersey. He was living outside of Philadelphia. We were an hour and a half away from each other. And every weekend we'd spend going to like workshops, full day workshops. And for a year we learned, we studied, and we felt comfortable enough to start making offers. We got a loan from my father, which is a really big deal. My father, both of our sets of parents, we both come from wonderful families, middle-class families where, having savings was a big deal. It wasn't just like
Mhm.
this unlimited amount of money. Neither of our families really, neither of us came from those type of families that, oh yeah, your dad just invested with you. Well, no, my dad was a school teacher, right? So $30,000 was a really big deal for him to loan anything to us. So he loaned us the money and we put that, part of it went to our renovation cost, right? Of that first rehab,
Mhm.
that duplex. And
Mhm.
part of it went to our down payment. And that duplex, 2004, we got our start.
Yeah. Immediately had to evict the tenant when we
Yeah.
bought it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I still remember her name. Yeah, and then we were off to the races into the School of Hard Knocks, and I also remember about a year after that, Liz and I knew, we were in love. Above like being in business together, we also loved each other very much, and we wanted to get married. And I remember the dinner that we were at that you said, "What if?" Let me give you a what if, Matt. What if when we get married? What if you quit your job? Like, what if I get a job that's enough to keep our lights on and
I don't
maintain
remember
our?
me saying that actually.
I
You
do.
you remember me saying
A
that?
lot of the good things that happen in our
Really?
company,
That's very
Liz,
true.
a lot of
That's
the good
actually true.
ideas, I refer to you as this, that you are like the DeRosa muse, And a muse is a real person that whispers really good ideas into people's ears, right? And so I
I do.
remember I remember the meal. I
I have
remember
superior
the
intelligence, by the way.
the whole
So
thing. You do. No. I remember that. And you said, "What if when we get married, what if you quit your job
yeah.
and we buy a little bit smaller house and live lean
Yeah.
and find a way to live off of your income?" Because you knew I did not like my job I had. I was good at it, but I didn't like it.
Correct. And
I
I
felt
just
like I
started my career,
yeah,
if you will. Yeah.
right. And you could start your career and we could live off of your salary. And I said, that's really, novel, ideal concept. And so we did that. And so right after we got married, I pretty much gave notice to my employer. And within 2.5 months or so, this company was born, DeRosa Group.
And I'll just say really quickly, I know that, you've shared that DeRosa is my mother's maiden name.
Yes.
But I want to give one other insight to this because when you and I started, and I think this is a good tip for anyone starting a new business, a side hustle, is really to like think about like 10 years from now, what do I want this company to look like? And Matt and I did a lot of visioning. We're both pretty visionary type of people.
Yeah.
If we could just do that all day, right? We would love it.
Just give
Versus
us a
some of the
ginormous whiteboard the size of a
we could
billboard
just do
with
that all
us
day.
pull it up.
That's why we're not the best day-to-day operators. And
Mhm.
that's why we've shifted some of the ways we've worked together, right, over the years. But I digress. Back to DeRosa, something we did, we said, where do we want to be in 10 years? And we said, not so much where do we want to be, but what kind of company do we want to build? And I
Mhm.
remember us talking about names because people do spend a lot of time on names of things. And I get it, right? I have the real estate investor. Like that's a really powerful name, right?
Sure is.
But we wanted to create something, and I think this is important for people to note. Do you want to create something that goes like that lives beyond yourself? And I
Mm.
think you and I always really wanted to before we had like one person that we impacted, we always wanted to make an impact in a really big way. And by calling a company like the Faircloth Enterprises, we felt like that was very limiting. And
Yep.
we felt like it wasn't big enough for us. Even though DeRosa is my mother's maiden name, it still was like a name removed from us in the
Yeah.
sense of like I thought about what DeRosa represented, and it represented like this, very hardworking, high level of work ethic, and it just embodied a bigger, I don't know, a bigger company and a
Yeah.
bigger impact. I don't know how
Mhm.
else to say it, and I think it may not be as obvious. Oh, it was her mother's maiden name
Yeah.
versus Faircloth. It wasn't that flippant. It was more flippant. It was more thought through and meaningful to us
Mhm.
to name it something that wasn't our name to kind of live beyond ourselves. So I just wanted to say that
Yeah.
as part of the journey.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's something I don't talk about very often, but you're right. And I do see other, companies that are the whatever group and it's in the last name of the people that own it. I've been called Matt DeRosa before, because
Oh,
people
that's
think,
funny.
just obviously you would just name
Yeah,
the
yeah,
company
yeah.
after yourself, wouldn't you? Like, no, that's not my name. It's the company's name because in essence, we've grown DeRosa quite a bit to the point now controlling thousands of units of multifamily,
Mhm.
an active fund, and about $65 million, believe it or not, Liz, of investor capital under management now, all of investor equity that we are custodians for. It's a larger company than the Faircloths. It's
Yeah,
not the Faircloth Group anymore, and
it's not.
we would have grown that. And I think that would be hard to enroll the phenomenal partners that we have, or the phenomenal team that we have.
But we
By
did that
growing
when we didn't
Faircloth.
have a
Yeah,
team. We did that when we didn't have the
that's
team.
right.
We did that when we didn't have the investors. We did
Mhm.
that when we had nothing to our name, really.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And I think that like the lesson, because let's give like the lessons that we got here, right? The lesson there, perhaps for somebody watching here, is to create something bigger than you, right?
Mm.
If we had named the company the Faircloth Group with the mindset of it's all ours and we're gonna just name it after us or whatever it is, it would have maybe not become something much larger
Yeah.
than Liz and I. It'd be hard to enroll people to work for a company with somebody else's last name on it, right? Is what that'll never be mine, will it? where it's easy for us to, give away participation equity to our team members in DeRosa Group because it's ours, right?
Yeah.
And I think in essence, what I would advise anybody watching here would do, if you're going to create a company or if you're going to build a brand for yourself that's going to become a legacy, build something bigger than you, right? Larger than your name, your brand, that'll live and die with you, something that can live on. So, and I do think that you're in serving women and helping women build wealth. The mantra for DeRosa, the mission for DeRosa, dare I say, is to transform lives through real estate, because we get that what real estate investing in itself affects the lives of many. And it just, for the people that live there, the people that invest in it, the people that work on it. I read somewhere, Liz, that 25% of the US economy is in some derivative or in some spill down way is affected by real estate. 25%. The real estate investing industry it is a large pebble, not even a pebble. It's like a boulder dropping into a pond with a lot of ripples that spill out from it.
Yeah. Takes care of a human need, right? Housing.
It does. So let's transition, because I've been married for going up on 19 years now and working together for all these times. What are like some tips you want to get for people watching that are maybe, looking to build a business with their spouse or working with their spouses now? And you and I could even, share some like war stories of things that we did that didn't work. And then we learned what did work later. Right. So what are like some lessons that you and I learned along the way in, with things not working, and maybe you had like, oh, that didn't work. Let's not do that. Let's not do that again. What are some stories or memories you have of doing it the wrong way to figure it out the right way?
I feel like we did so many things the wrong way that you and
Yeah.
I have just learned that way. So
Yeah,
then
how
we
you and I learned, right? Like,
yeah,
oh,
I've learned that. No,
banging my head against this brick wall hurts. Let me not do that again. Right?
I think early on we divided and conquered. I mean, I here's the funny irony of it all is that I used to work with a personality assessment tool, which I'm a very big fan of. If you have
Mm-hmm.
not taken the predictive index or a personality type of assessment, I'm a big fan of that, even with your spouse, because you see things in a very objective way. And sometimes with best friends or parents or people close to you, it could get very subjective.
Yeah.
So I'm a very big fan of that. I just want to put that out there. Colby is another great one to do. Kolbe, strategic coach. I'm sorry, Dan Sullivan, not Dan Sullivan. Kathy Colby. How can I forget? Kathy Colby is the one that Dan Sullivan is a big user of Colby.
Yeah, he uses it. Yeah.
Another tool. But I think early on, the biggest mistake we made was that we just divided and conquered because we needed to get shit done. I mean, we did it more on like,
You can
let's
say
just
that
divide
was
and conquer to get it done versus really like what is really aligned with our strengths.
Yeah.
And I feel like the person I am today and the person I was when you and I started, even for the first several years,
Yeah.
are two different people. I don't think I would have done the things that I did then. Like I did the bookkeeping. Like I did the bookkeeping. And it's interesting with me and Matt, we both have we're very both high relationship, high idea people. And I fell into more of like an integrator sort of role, more of a detail oriented role. And I did it by default. And I think a lot of people in their relationships do that because you do need that person.
Yeah.
You don't need two idea relationship people. And for many years, I did an okay job.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think that stifled our growth, hands down.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Mhm.
I stifled our growth. I think that decision stifled our growth.
Yeah.
Because had I been this like dynamo operator, I think I would have gotten our house, like our finances, our processes, our systems. I would have been like on fire with that. And that's what we
Mhm.
really needed at that moment.
Yeah.
Instead, I did an okay job at some of that while Matt was growing the business. And what we really needed is that like kind of like that number two strong operator. And it wasn't until right, Matt, that we strategically shifted some things up where you did have that. You
Yeah.
did have that partner and those people in place. So, hindsight's 2020. But we did transition in a really powerful way. So that was the learned lesson, is that it took us some time. But so if you can do that, as you have like a handful of properties or one property together, what do you really, if you're working together and you're investing together, what are your skills? What are your your skills? What's your passion? What's your knowledge? What's your personality? Making sure you're in the right lane and then
Mm.
stay in that lane is
Mm.
what I would say. And it's really hard to have two operators or quite
Yeah.
honestly, two visionaries. Neither
It
are
really was.
effective.
It was difficult to have two people trying. Liz and I fought over the steering wheel a lot, so to speak, because we both are drivers and are alphas in a lot of ways in driving and creating. So it's tough to do that in that sense. I think that just getting clear in which seat each of us were in was difficult at the time. I'll go I'm maybe just agreeing with you a bit here, but I'll go a different direction on a mistake that I think that we made, which is in some ways in line everything you just said, but just highlighting another just mistake out there. Right, when we first got started, we went in a lot of different directions. I mean, one day we're looking at fix and flips, next day we're looking at wholesale deals. We had some success in the renovate to rent, the BRRRR strategy thing, right? We had done some successful BRRRR deals. in that. And so, hey, I got an idea. Hey, how about let's go buy an office building, right? Right. Which is completely not related to anything else we had done. We tried a lot of new things.
And they weren't, but here's the deal. I think
Yeah.
when you're trying something new, especially in this economy, right? People are pivoting, people are adapting. And I think there's a time and a place to do that. I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan of like, this is the one strategy. I only do short-term rentals, yet
Yeah.
my community is stopping regulations for Airbnb, but I'm gonna keep doing it. Like I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of going against the grain.
Yes.
I am also a fan of pivoting mindfully, but in hindsight, did we need to buy a 10,000 square foot building, Matt? We should have bought something that was much smaller, I think.
Yeah.
If we were going to pivot and get into a new kind of
Yeah.
focus, if you will, a strategic focus, I think that was the mistake. I don't know if
Yeah.
it in and of itself was the mistake, if that
We
makes
could have
sense.
dissected that office building purchase a lot of different ways and the mistakes that we made with it. I mean, the biggest mistake that I saw in buying that office building was there was only one clear exit to profitability on it, which was to lease the entire building to one single user that was going to pay us what the math that I showed them to be what they were leasing up. And this is to the state of New Jersey, where we were going to target the state of New Jersey or other large users to pay us $18 a square foot,
We
which
had
is
no
what,
proof of that either, though. We did no market analysis. I mean,
yeah.
you can go on and on with
And
all
the
these
broker
things,
that we bought it
but
from, yeah, sure, you could find somebody, but he
yeah.
wasn't like guaranteeing that. He was like, yeah, well, and then right after that, the bottom fell out of the market, 2008, yada, yada, yada.
You
But it
know,
was also just a new learning. It was a big bite to be learning on, to go buy that big of an office building. But what I was getting at is that you and I were trying to go in a lot of different directions and we're figuring it out on our own. And we were not a part of any real like mentorship
yeah.
programs to say like, hey,
Yeah.
like Strive or DeRosa's accelerator program, whatever it was, shameless plug, but hey, they work. I've created success in our programs and you've created success in yours and that. But like we weren't a part of anything for somebody who had been where we wanted to go, right? Like we wanted to create financial freedom, wanted to create enough cash flow for ourselves so that eventually you could end up quitting your job, which we did get there eventually by focusing out of like default, but like all these other things aren't working. So let's focus on buying long-term rentals and raising capital from investors. Had we gotten those clues earlier in the game, I think we would have just achieved, we got there, we achieved success, but we would have achieved success faster with someone with a bit of a roadmap that we could have borrowed and maybe not lived exactly on the map, but the map could have given us at least a bit of a guide.
Totally.
And I think that our biggest mistake was not, sticking with someone to give us advice. And we had some advice whispered to us here and there, but the real traction happened when we told ourselves, hey, this one thing of the 9 different initiatives we're doing, this one right here seems to be working a lot. So let's do this a lot more.
And
And
that's
when we did
yeah,
that,
that was a
that's
big
when we got
pivot
to
for us.
success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that you and I learned along the way, which is something I wanted to offer to the community, both men and women that are watching, is really, often people are they're investing with their spouse, they're figuring things out together in the business. But what they're not doing enough of is actually kind of getting a sense of what's working and not in their household.
Mm,
And so often we want to free time up in our business, but the way to do that is to actually free up time in our personal lives.
mm,
So something that I know, you and I talked a lot about, and that's the biggest thing that I think has always worked for us, is that we communicate. And we don't just communicate and have the same fights. So if we have breakdowns, now we've had the same fight over time, right? Sometimes we've had multiple breakdowns. It's like the same script you're saying, but the breakthrough, until you really have the breakthrough that's needed, you don't then repeat it again, right? And so something that you and I went through, and I know the impetus of this was being Andressa chatting in the airport. And I was just sharing with her how much stuff I had on my plate, which is a lot of the reason I created the Invest Her community with Andressa, was to create a space for women to become financially free
mhm.
and create balance and live life on their own terms.
Yeah.
And so what I was kind of complaining about, in a sense, I don't really complain, but I'll just start sharing, and then I start, sharing and sharing. In essence, it's complaining, but it's my own way of saying complaining.
You
And
vent. You don't
I
complain,
vent.
you vent.
I was venting.
Right.
That was
You get
great.
things off your chest, whatever it is. It's like you just carry it around like,
I
I need
do.
to put this down. This is you
I
and
got
I
to put
got
this
that
down.
from Landmark, right? When you United Landmark Forum is like, hey, I'm carrying this around. I need to put this down now. Can I put it down? Right. And
Yeah.
then you vent it off and now it's down. Right.
And what I was venting about, complaining about, whatever, is really in a sense that, like, how much I was doing in our household with our
Mhm.
kids. We had 2 young kids. For many years of our business, me and Matt didn't have children. And about 8 years into our marriage, we had our first kiddo. And then we have 2, right? Now we have a 7 and a 10-year-old. And so I was kind of not complaining, but just venting and a little how overwhelmed I was at home. And Andressa, turned to me. She's like, I'm a single parent. I know what that's like, because it's intense. She's like, you're not a single parent, but the way you're talking sounds like you are a single parent. She's like, something has to shift. And so we talked a little bit about, what that could look like. Her and I just, getting some support, which I always am a big fan of, getting support from people that you like, trust, and respect. And then when I shared a little bit what was coming up for me with Matt, we decided to, like, create something where we like wrote down all the tasks that were happening. And that was like, let me know what I need to do. But it's not like I need to be in charge of all the things because that's like a mental load.
No.
So many people, and many times it's majority women, struggle with not just the doing of tasks, it's the thinking of the task and the
Yeah.
doing of the task. It's a lot. And so we said, no, I'm not going to just tell you what you need to do every week. Like I'm going to delegate to you.
Yeah.
We're going to own different things. You're doing the thinking, you're doing the planning. So the mental load has now been released. And so we did that. And I went from like 95% of the household to what, like, I say I do the majority, but I'm like more like 70. We're like 70-30, I would say,
Mhm.
and
I
that
mean, I'll
works
meet
for
you
our
at
relationship.
60. I'll go 65-45. How about
All right,
65-35?
65. No,
Yeah.
that doesn't
Yeah.
even add up. That doesn't
You
make
give me
sense.
that 5%?
No,
No?
65-35. It's 65-35.
Yeah, I do the math, right? Okay. But here's my side of that, right? And this is absolutely right. I think you just said. I think maybe some other husbands out there can relate to that. And and I don't. Most men are not chauvinist jerk offs where they're going to just say, "Well, it's her job to do. She's a woman of the family. It's her job to take care of the house and family." Whatever. I mean, there's a few folks out there, and hey,
I
God
think
bless you.
it's more subtle than you
Uh,
think, Matt. I think it's more subtle than you think. I don't think they're doing do do do, but I
yeah,
do think it's a more subtle.
put their hands on the hips and doing a
Yeah,
dance.
I think it is a more subtle. It's a gender
Yeah.
role, though.
Yeah.
You can't dispute that. But
It
go
is an
on.
assumption. You're right. There is an assumption of that gender role in society. You're right. And there is a default to it because in a lot of ways, that's what, as men, that's what we saw our mothers do. And so
Correct.
we were trained that way by
Correct.
society, not
That's
our
the key.
fault. Not that we expect that. It's just that that's just the way that
Sure.
we saw what's what our parents did.
Sure.
Well, as you've taught me in many ways, the women evolution is happening quite a bit. Women couldn't, would you tell me women couldn't get a credit card up until 1974 or couldn't
No,
open
they
up a bank
couldn't
account
sign up.
by
They couldn't
themselves?
go and get a bank loan, up until like 74,
Yeah.
meaning they had to
Women,
have their spouse sign off on the bank loan along
or
with
if or like their brother or their father or whatever, if they weren't married, right? That's crackalacky, by the way. I think that men don't realize that that there's a certain evolution of today's woman, right? I was about to say the American woman, but today's woman, right? So in that, when Liz came to me with it, at first my knee-jerk reaction was, well, how can I support you? What can I do to help you in that? And that's not the right answer in those things because it's not really taking it off Liz's plate, is it? It's like all those that she's still got 95% of the stuff on her plate. And then I become like her little staff to sometimes take the trash out, sometimes make dinner, sometimes give the kids a ride to school or whatever. But real ownership, that to use that word,
yeah.
right? It's ownership doesn't mean, well, when you ask me to, I'll take the trash out. That doesn't mean, that's not ownership. Ownership of a thing means that I'm in charge of this and I make sure it happens and
Yeah,
it's
and
mine.
one of the big things, and this is I have a freebie to give everyone. We've
Oh,
created
free
a couple.
stuff.
Yeah, we have, and I'll put this I'll give this to you as a link, and I have a QR code, but it's basically called a couples audit. And
Mm,
even if you're single, this would be useful for you. But in essence, it's really helping you through giving you ideas on all the tasks that happen in a household.
mhm.
And then the idea of it's basically like a checklist and an audit to
Yeah.
assess who's doing what, who's owning what, and more
Own it. Not
importantly, what are
doing,
some
owning.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just because you own it doesn't mean you need to do it. You could own meal prep, but you
Yeah.
get HelloFresh and you get other, so it doesn't mean you're actually doing all the things in that ownership. It just means you're owning to ensure the task gets done.
Yes. And
That's what
so
ownership is.
in our family, I own Liz and I sat down and I'm like, she brought me the problem and I said, right, I'm in, let's do this. And then every husband should have that response.
I
You're
didn't
right.
bring you the
Yeah.
problem. Hold on, hold on, hold on. I didn't bring
Oh,
you
here
the
we go.
problem.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, I didn't, but that's different. I didn't bring you a problem. I enrolled you in a situation that was happening that we're both
Even
part
better.
of.
Even
I
better.
Yeah, I
Even
didn't
better.
just throw a problem at you. Just for the just for the
Like,
record.
you got to do more. No,
Because
the
that's not
problem
going to
is,
enroll you.
you're right. You're
I
right.
wanted to
No, that's
enroll you.
true. That's true. You're right. The situation is that Liz had a growing, thriving business, and she did not want to, did not have the time to do all the household deeds that needed to get done. While she also was the, executive director of her company, and the chief visionary officer of this very thriving, growing community called the Real Estate Investor. She also had another life that she wanted to lead besides just being the Faircloth family support staff, right? And that's fulfilling in itself, but there's also more to what Liz wanted, right? And so we sat down and we went through we made the list together, which is the list that Liz can give to you guys now as today's freebie. And it was everything from like yard maintenance to clothes to food, like not just food as in like putting food getting food to the refrigerator. So food shopping and making sure we have a stocked fridge at all times. And also food prep, making like who's cooking dinner, who's going to make breakfast, and responsible for those things. Right. And so I decided to own a few things off of that list. And so things like making sure that there's maintenance done on the house, not well by me, because I promise you, you do not want to use something that's been fixed by me too much. I can do a little bit of repair, but not much. But if anything in the house doesn't work, it's my responsibility to make sure it does get fixed. And that might mean Liz saying, hey, this light switch isn't working. I say, hey, babe, can you do me a favor? Can you call our maintenance guy and ask him to come fix that? And then I have to make sure it gets done or whatever. It doesn't mean that I have to do everything. And it doesn't mean that I do all the cooking because that took over food. It doesn't mean that Liz does not lift a finger in the kitchen ever, because there's days when I travel, right? Or days when I'm out or when I can't get there to cook, but we do have a conversation about it. And for things that Liz owns, she asks me to back her up, to help her. But it's like a number one, number two, like who's own it, the number one person, and the second person is like support. So Liz certainly cooks meals on a regular basis, but it's when I tell her that, hey, I need help with that or whatever it is. So it's created a great balance. I do acknowledge that the 65, maybe 70, maybe she's right. That percent of the balance is still there, but it's still, I feel like I do have ownership of our household now. And I feel like I'm a contributor in
You are.
things that I own. And I
And it
feel like
works right now. Maybe we'll get to the point where we need to renegotiate the contract, right? And I think that's part of
yeah,
I think that's the other success trait of a couple who's investing together, working together, is that you need to continually, things change, and to think of that the contract you signed when you say first brought the property to managing the property or selling the property or building a business together, it's unlikely that anyone is static. It's an ever evolving piece, just like, people need to continually be in communication to say what's working, what's not. This and that, what we have going on may not be working in a year. I don't know that, but but it's working now, and it's certainly a tremendous amount better than what was happening, right? Where it was just like this unconscious delineation of roles, just because I was the woman and he was the man. It was ridiculous,
yeah.
right? So you have to
Before
keep
we move on,
talking
guys, I
about
want
it.
to point out one thing, and Liz has this phenomenal gift that she wants to give you guys to give away. And I also want Liz to highlight a little bit about what this juggernaut of the real estate investor is all about that. But I want to just give you guys one final tool that kind of segues into this ownership of what it takes to run a successful household, whether you have kids or not, because there's still household stuff that has to happen even for those with no kids. And that's a conversation called continue, start, and stop. And Liz and I meet regularly, even on date night, and have a brief, like, give me like a 10, 15-minute conversation about continue, start, and stop. And continue, start, and stop works like this. And this, I don't remember if this home ownership item came up during a continue, start, and
No,
stop, but it certainly
came back
could.
from my travel with Andressa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it. But it could have come up in that
Oh,
way, right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Continue, start, and stop works like this. As a married couple, you talk about one thing in the marriage, in our relationship, that's working really well, and I love that we're doing it this way, and we should continue to do this thing. And then you say, hey, a lot of times, Liz, for me, the starts come from watching others. Like, hey, that couple over there, they
Sure.
do this thing, or this woman that Liz met and invest her is, they go on more regular dates, or they schedule some overnights together, even with kids, whatever it is. We should start doing this thing. And
That's
maybe it's an
true.
idea you have, or a start that you see someone else that's successful, that has a successful marriage. You want to pull in that start. And the stop is like, hey, and the stop's the most difficult one, right? Because you kind of got to say something's not working. It doesn't work when for Liz and I, the stops have been stuff like, was not letting Liz finish her sentence sometimes. And that's like, it was a way, it was very disrespectful, and I shouldn't have done it that way. And it's because I really needed to get my point out to her, or whatever it was. It was a bad habit I had in our marriage. And so Liz pointed it out. And I have done my best to stop doing that. So
You have been better since I communicated that
thank you. High five myself. But there is just
2
the
weeks
stop
ago.
is something. It's one thing that you just point out that it's like it doesn't work that this is happening. And I know you love me, but could you just not, because it's really grating on my nerves, or it's whatever the stop is, big thing, little thing, whatever. Continue, start, and stop. Married couples should do that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Liz, floor is
Yes.
yours. Show us what you got, guys. Whip your handy dandy cell phones out. Scan this QR code, and Liz, tell us a little bit about Invest Her.
Yeah, I'm having just give me a second here. I am
I may be able
trying.
to do this for you.
Yeah, I just put it into the chat. So is
I
there a
think I
way
have
for
to do
you
it. There
to?
it is. There you go.
Okay. I don't know why, but
I can see it. It should be on the main screen now.
okay. I don't know why, but I lost you in seeing you on StreamYard because I was trying to get this window open. I tell you, I'm not technically good here sometimes. But anyway, I don't need to see you. But yes, I'll
See me enough. Right.
as long as you see the audit on the screen, that's great.
We do.
All right, cool. So
We see the
yeah,
QR code, most importantly.
yeah, this is the QR code. Again, this is a free PDF, everybody, to really do an audit, not just couples, but really on your household. And again, this could be done. Honestly, this could be helpful if you're single, or even better, to have a really powerful conversation to figure out who owns what can you outsource, what can you delegate. It's really, really cool. Gives you sections of your household, and you don't have to do all the thinking, because we just literally spent, an hour brainstorming all the things we had to figure out together. This will save you a good hour, 2 hours, and it really be a very powerful tool you could do together. So highly encourage that. Yeah, a little bit about Invest Her for those who are not as familiar. And really quickly, when you and I met, we're building DeRosa, then I kind of started to do investor relations, and then Invest Her started to really have some momentum. And this wasn't just something that Andres and I got together and said, we're incredibly passionate about creating a space, safe space for women to give and get and to really build their financial freedom on their own terms. And like, we decided this is more than just a meetup or something small. This is a movement. And to really put your energy and time into a movement, a community, a global movement, I really needed to step out of any sort of operational role in DeRosa, right, Matt? And that was when we really brought on somebody to help with investor relations. And so, for me to make that transition, it had to be something. And for me, I love real estate, but I even love more like empowering and changing people's lives. Like that's what my purpose in life is. And so with Invest Her, what we believe is that it's the birthright of every woman to become financially free. Like it's their birthright. And so that's what we believe. And we're creating a global community and platform for women to get that. Matt, to get the support that they need. Just like you said earlier, Matt, so many people and so many women are rugged individuals. So a lot of the women that come to our community are doing it all themselves. They got the household, they got their W-2, and then they have a bunch of properties on the side. And why we've created this community and why we've created our upcoming conference in June is to really, give them the space so they don't have to do it all themselves. They can go further and faster if they actually get more support around them and let go of some things. So that's what the community is about. That's what we stand for. We have a podcast. We do 50 plus meetups, but what our signature event every year, it's an annual event called InvestorCon. It's gonna be June 2nd to 4th. If you're a woman watching this, or if you know any women in your life, invite them to this. It's going to be a 2.5-day work conference in Austin, Texas. Our theme this year is going all in. So it's all about the women's financial revolution. Currently, women control $10 trillion of the U.S. economy. That's going to $30 trillion in the next 3 to 5 years, which is crazy. But so many times a lot of women aren't as confident investing their money. Traditionally, that's been more,
And Liz, you may not be able to see this, but I'm sharing the Real Estate Investor webpage right now. But keep going. Liz, you've really inspired me over the years with some of the statistics that you have about women's role in real estate investing, women's successes, investors, women's role in the economy, and that. So if you got any other stats you want to quote here, I mean, these are real numbers that are really stunning in a lot of ways for those that haven't heard them before.
Yeah, I'll give a couple of quick ones. Number one, the irony, the interesting thing, and I didn't know any of this when we started the investor community. We just wanted to create a place that Andres and I could bring women together to give and get the support in a safe space. Right now, what we've learned, right, 6 years later, is this much bigger and there is an actual need. Women will traditionally outlive men at least 6 to 7 years. So women are outliving men, right? The need for continued, money and wealth, it's not indicative of a gender. Everyone does need to think about these things, right? Especially with where we know Social Security is, where we know of a lot of things out there. We need to take the ownership. We need to take financial control ourselves, right? That's number two. Number three, women actually, the research is that there's a very high percent of women who actually control the household. Like 80% of women actually manage their finances, meaning manage the household finances traditionally. I manage all of our finances for our household. I think a lot of women do, and some women don't, but that's a higher percentage. The less of a percent when it comes to making investment decisions specifically, the number drops down to 29%. So yet women typically outperform men as investors. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think women, at least again, I'm not speaking for all women, but there is a natural cautiousness to women, I think, a little bit more than I've seen in our male counterparts. So from a real estate investing perspective, the properties, the deals that they choose to get involved in tend to be the right calls. And so they're not doing it in a in a like, how many doors can I own? The number one reason women invest in real estate is to actually pass along wealth to their families. That is the number one reason that women in particular invest in real estate. So our theme for our conference is about how do you go all in to take advantage of this. Women are no longer a niche. Women are making the investing decisions. Many of them don't feel as confident doing it alone. So they don't need to do it alone, but they certainly don't need to rely on and their, no offense, just their spouse just to take care of it. They could be the leaders of it and surround themselves with other like-minded women. We have Sally Krawcheck, one of our keynotes. She runs Elvest. She's a very, very powerful speaker. Her platform helps women get comfortable and confident in investing in stocks by them, on their own, kind of in the driver's seat. Kim Kiyosaki is one of our keynotes. She wrote Rich Woman, runs the Rich Dad Company. And we have Kathy Fecky, who's amazing, speaking on the economy. So and it's all about, like, Matt, alternative investing. So it's not just about real estate, although we do have core real estate investing. We have a panel I'll be leading on how to buy a business, how to get in the stock market, just alternative, diversification. You don't want to just diversify in a bad way, but you want to have all your knowledge base up so you can make the right decisions. Women's lives get transformed from these 2.5 days. We literally pour ourselves into every single detail like no other conference that's out there, to be honest.
It
So
is exciting. I've been to a lot of conferences, and I've been to, I think, every investor con. And I think I'm the only man that's spoken on stage
yes,
at an
you have.
investor con, so to speak. So honored to say that. But at the end of the day, it is like nothing I've ever seen before. It is something that you feel the movement happening in the space when you're in the room. So for those women watching, I really, really encourage you guys to join the real estate investor community. For the men watching, I encourage you men to encourage your spouses to get involved in investor, and also to be the biggest support and stand that you can for the rising woman that you might be lucky enough to have at your hip, and your spouse or your girlfriend or whatever it may be. So encourage them to be a part of investor, and encourage them to demand what they need from the world and from you, and to be strong enough to be the husband of an investor, because it is something that is an honor and a phenomenal space. It's taught me a lot. Being the husband of one of the founders of the investor has taught me a ton about what it is to be a spouse to a thriving entrepreneurial woman. So I really, really commend you, Liz, for what you built.
Thank
I
you.
really, really pinch myself every day. It's like, oh my God, my wife's like literally out there changing the world. So,
And I'm proud of
yeah.
what we've done. I'm
Yeah.
proud of DeRosa. I'm proud of what you've done with the team that you have now, because you're able to impact more people's lives in a way that I think when you and I were just operating, we took it to a point, and that's exciting to me. That's very,
Yeah.
I get emotional because it's very impactful what
And
you're
you and I
doing
both.
and what I'm doing.
You and I both.
you know,
On that note. And well, hey guys, listen, you've effectively spent the best hour of your day listening to their cash flow digest with me and Liz about talking about your financial future, real estate, invest her. Guys, one more time, I'll just throw it up here. Grab
Yeah.
that QR code. There it is. QR code right there. Scan that. Get the free PDF from the real estate investor
And
community as a gift on how you guys can effectively and fairly both co-share family roles. So it doesn't have to be 50-50. Liz and I could do a whole nother talk about the 50-50 BS that's out there. It doesn't have to be that, but it should be shared.
Yeah, and the website, therealestateinvesther.com, is where you can learn more about our conference. But we're almost sold out of sponsorships. We have limited seats for this one, so I think we're on our way to selling out our tickets. So I would
sure will.
get your tickets quickly.
Yeah, get there, guys. Thank you. Let's stick around for a second. I want you to have me sign it off here. Guys, thank you so much for watching the Cash Flow Digest. As I said, if you guys are watching this program on Spotify, go to Facebook right now. And after you join the Real Estate Investor community on Facebook, join the DeRosa Insiders community on Facebook, and join the thousands of people that are members of that community as well. And make some comments. And next time, come join the show live. Make some comments like other folks have here as well during this show. Thank you guys for watching. Liz, thank you. And it's always an honor to share the stage with you and to share a microphone. So good stuff, guys. Talk to you soon. Hey guys, Matt Faircloth here. Thank you for listening again to the Cash Flow Digest. I really appreciate you guys doing that. If you guys want to hear more about what DeRosa Group has to offer, go to derosagroup, DEROSA group.com, derosagroup.com online. You can hear about all the great things that we offer from an educational standpoint and passive investment standpoint on our website. See you there. And if you guys want to join our online community, DeRosa